Welcome and Vitayamo to the third in the St Vladimir Institute culinary series. My name is Julia Metelitsa, and I will be helping out our chef, Mykola Rutkay, with managing your questions throughout the hour. So of course, we have a bunch of people registered here today and more joining as we speak. So just a reminder to keep yourself muted as I was earlier. So make sure you keep yourself muted to avoid any sort of interferences, but you are welcome to keep your camera on. So we want to make this a community event, see what you're cooking, and so feel free to keep it on, but do note that we are recording the event. So with that being said, I just want to give a quick background about St Vladimir Institute. So the Institute, St Vladimir Institute, or SVI, is a multifaceted institution in downtown Toronto, Canada, housing a 46-room student residence and providing a home to 13 community and academic organizations. SVI is also a public cultural center with a theater, library, and event spaces. And it's a community hub offering cultural programming, Ukrainian language lessons, and social events. Cultural programming is, of course, central to SVI's vision, mission, history, and legacy. It's key to strengthening the identity and community of individuals of Ukrainian descent while making an important contribution to the natural culture of Canada. And that's why we're here today. So thank you all again for joining us. And before we get started, we're excited to introduce you to Mykola Rutkay. He's a graduate of one of Canada's top chef schools at George Brown College. He's worked in the restaurant industry for over a decade and is currently the head chef at Joey Restaurant Group in Toronto, where he has won some cooking competitions and a Manager of the Year award. So Mykola credits his love for cooking to his talented grandmother and mother, who are of course joined with us today. So Pani Anne Moskaliuk, his grandmother, and Pani Darcia Moskaliuk Rutkay. So I'll tell you a little bit about them later on today. But with that being said, Mykola lives and cooks with his wife, Cassie, in Toronto, and she'll also be helping out today. So it is a whole family affair. We hope your family is helping you out today, or if you're doing it alone, you have all of us to join here with you. So but once we get started, I'll now pass it off to Mykola, and let us know, maybe Mykola, if you could, what inspired you to become a chef? Just a few, let's get started there.
Okay, well, hi everybody. So what inspired me to be a chef? You guys can stand here. You don't have to go off screen.
It's okay.
Anyway, well, my inspiration just walked off screen, but anyone that knows me really well knows I really like to eat, and essentially I just made a career out of it. I've just always wanted to make anything I want, and now I make money doing that. So other than that, Mama and Baba they were always in the kitchen, always making dinner for way too many people that we didn't have coming over, and that's where I found myself. So here we are today. So I guess, yeah, enough about me. We're gonna get started because this can take some time. So hang on, Mama wants to show you a picture.
I hope you can see this photo.
You gotta go closer.
It was produced here, you help. It was produced in February of 1999. Mykola at age 9 drew a picture of a chef. And so we always say he knew what he wanted to be back then.
There you go. Okay, so most of you, if not all of you, should have already made the filling, and we're gonna get started right away on the dough because it does need to rest. So we wanted to start there. So I'm just gonna go through everything that you need, and then we'll get started so that we can talk a little bit more about Varennyky or perogies, whatever you wanna call it. But you should have a mixing bowl. You're gonna need a rolling pin. We also have a wine bottle that Mama likes to use. So we have a wine bottle that's for Baba to drink and Mama to roll. We also have a pasta machine. So I'll show you what I use at home because I don't have the patience to use a rolling pin. We're gonna have, if you use potatoes, you have potatoes ready. We're gonna have flour and salt ready to go, some milk, oil, sour cream, and eggs. And then you're gonna need a couple glasses. So Baba likes to use this whiskey glass because it's a little heavier and thinner, a little smaller. At home, I like to use a little IKEA glass that I think everyone owns. And you get your bigger Varennyky. So depending on what you want,
What size?
I don't know, it's a small one.
Yeah.
It's a small
No, I
one
get
size. It's about 3. You want something that's about 2.5 to 3.5 inches in diameter, but it all depends on what you want to do. So a little knife helps with cooking or cutting the dough if you want to get one of those. And then a little bowl of flour and a little bowl of water. That's going to come in handy as we're rolling it out in the water when we're pinching them together if it's not sticky enough. So I just want to know, is everybody ready to go?
Looks like we have some cooks in the kitchen, some thumbs up, so looks like it's all set.
Okay.
And just to be clear, Mykola should be full screen on your end. I see a few questions on my end, so if he is not on the right-hand side of your screen, you can just click speaker view, so change the view and he should be full screen. But hopefully he's spotlighted for you and you can see it all in big picture. We'll keep going back to you. Thanks, Mykola.
All right, so if you read the recipe, there's 8 cups of flour. So this, when you're making a Varennyky, you never just make a couple for that night. You make a ton for a couple months, or you have a bunch of people coming over. So I've never made a few Varennyky. You always make a lot. So the recipe we're using is 8 cups of flour. It's in and around 120 Varennyky. We split it in half, so we have one ready to go, and then this is the rest of the dough. If you want, and you don't want to make them all today, you can freeze the dough and you can freeze the filling or eat the filling and make fresh filling, but the dough freezes really well. So we're starting off with some flour and salt. We have 4 cups of flour. And then we have some wet ingredients. So
Have a teaspoon, a tablespoon.
yeah, about a tablespoon of salt, kind of just to taste, to give it a little bit of flavor. Now the recipe is also large because it uses 3 eggs. So if you get a scale, I added grams in the recipe. It lets you divide the recipe down if you do want to do it that way, but it's just difficult to cut the cups in half and get it right. So we're just going to take all the wet ingredients and add them into the dry. You can use a KitchenAid if you have the KitchenAid. I did that with the first recipe. For this one, we're going to start mixing with a wooden spoon. Baba was telling me that a fork works best. I like to use a spoon, and then I'll get in there with my hands, just so that it comes together. You can start mixing as I talk because it's going to take a bit. And then we're going to let it rest. And I'll show you what the difference is between a rested dough and just a freshly mixed dough. And then you're also going to find it's a little bit wet. So I'm going to get mixing and we'll talk about that as we get going. So normally I just mix all the wet ingredients together because we're doing some TV magic. I have it all separate. So we have our flour, 1 cup of potato water. So you want to mix the potato water before you put it in, just so you get all that potato starch in there. That helps soften the dough. Our oil, some sour cream. Do you have it on somewhere else? You can hear myself.
Yeah, in the kitchen.
Yeah, turn it off.
No, seriously.
Huh? I
They're
can't hear myself. I can hear myself somewhere. And then some milk. And then that's 1.5 eggs. So if you're splitting
Freshly cracked.
Mama thought it was so important to say freshly cracked. You can use not a freshly cracked egg. That's fine. I don't know why it's so funny, but it's funny. Okay. So then you're just going to get mixing. So you want to gently incorporate everything. And again, the idea is the dough should come together and be a little bit sticky. When we roll it out and as we work with it, you want to use a lot of flour. So the dough is going to start off very sticky, but as you add flour, it makes it easier to work with. And then the idea, what you're looking for is you're looking for a little bit of bite, but you're also looking for just a very soft dough, a nice and light and fluffy dough. Something else you can use this recipe for if you have too much dough. We like to just cut up the extras into little squares or little rounds and call them Varennyky, and you just boil that. And that was always my favorite as a kid, to have those little pieces of dough. So at this point I have it all together, but I'm going to go in there with my hands so all the flour is absorbed. So you just want to get in, you're going to get your hands nice and messy. Again, if you're using a KitchenAid, it's a lot less messy.
Yeah, Mykola, quick question on the KitchenAid. Someone asked, what attachment do you use? Do you use the dough hook?
No, use the pad. You can use the dough hook too. The paddle just brings it all together quicker. The idea is just to get as much of that flour absorbed as you can. But yeah, I use the paddle attachment.
And then another quick question on the dough. So if you're having the dough, so it looks like one of the guests here are having the recipe. So 4 cups instead of 8 cups. How many eggs as the recipe calls for 3?
So that's why I use the 8 cup and use a scale. But what you do is you just crack half an egg and you save the other half and just use an egg and a half.
Or-
Or Baba, go ahead.
Well, you know what,
Baba, come in the video.
You're not in the video.
I just put 1 egg. I use the extra large egg. And I just use 1 egg when I'm
Doing half.
mixing for just 4 cups of flour.
There you go. So yeah, you can use an extra large egg. It's a pretty forgiving recipe.
And
What else?
yeah, then you could put a little bit more sour cream or,
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah, and so that's important. So you can change it up. It took me a couple of years to write Baba's recipe down because every time I would hear it from her, she would change something on me. So that recipe that I sent out was actually years of research after many generations of developing it. So here we go. So I'll bring it up to the camera. You have a shaggy mess like that. That's what the dough should look like. As long as most of the flour is absorbed, you're gonna let it rest.
So that's what we got. That's Mykola's years of
Oh,
research.
There we go.
That's your original.
That's the original Baba recipe actually written down. Mama saves everything apparently, so
Yeah.
that's what we use.
It stays on my fridge.
I spelled
always.
potato wrong, so yeah, English wasn't my forte back then.
No.
So, I'm out of the frame. So after that, it's incorporated. You don't need to work it too much. You're just gonna cover it with a damp kitchen cloth or saran wrap. And then here we have a finished dough. So as it rests, you're gonna see it's very stretchy. So anytime you're working with flour, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of gluten because there's a lot of gluten intolerances, allergies out there. Gluten will naturally develop as it rests. So that's why you let it rest. It allows the flour to absorb all the moisture because it does take about 20 minutes to half an hour. We're gonna let this rest for about 15. We're gonna get starting forming soon because we only have an hour until we need to eat. But that's what it should look like. So you'll get that natural gluten. It won't be quite like making bread, but it should be a little stretchier and it'll get less sticky, which is fine because as we add more flour, again, you're gonna have all that flour in there. So I'm gonna go wash my hands. I'll let everybody mix their dough and wash their hands. Maybe if any questions come up, maybe Baba, you can answer any questions.
Well, yes.
I also have the chair here, so you're.
No, I can stand.
I was gonna just say, maybe you can let us know about some of the other fillings. So I know today we're making the potato and cheese filling. What are some of your other favorites?
When I lived on the farm, we had a lot of buckwheat and cottage cheese. And my mother would make it with buckwheat. And you would make it like you're making the buckwheat
Casserole?
cabbage rolls. And you use as much cottage cheese as you like, but you do have to have cottage cheese in it so it would stay together. Because buckwheat is quite dry when it's cooked.
But also kapusta. Talk about your kapusta.
Oh, yes, and sauerkraut, yes, you prepare the sauerkraut, you really have to squeeze it out, the juice, and then you wash it quite a bit. And you have to cut the sauerkraut quite a bit, so it shrinks practically to nothing. And then you put a lot of onions in. You fry the onions first, and then you put the onions in, and you bake that for about an hour and a half. And that's about all. But you have to cool that quite a
It
bit.
has to be cooled right down.
Yeah, it has to be cooled right down, the sauerkraut.
Tell about your meat ones.
Oh, yes. My husband came from Ivano-Frankivsk, and he said that his mother always made Varennyky with a leftover roast beef. she would grind it, and she would put onions in there, but she would fry the onions first, and put it all together with the meat. But I use beef broth a bit to make it a little bit more sticky when,
As a filling.
yeah, as a filling, because it's, when you grind up the roast beef, it's kind of dry. Unless you have a leftover gravy, then you could use that.
Lots of different combinations. That got to try the roast beef one for sure. So someone asked, what do you add to the kapusta filling? Do you add anything else to it, or just kapusta?
Well, no, with the onions, you could put mushrooms if you like, but I have never tried it with mushrooms. So I should say I have tried it, but my family preferred it without. They would like the mushrooms on the side rather than.
Or on top.
Yeah, but
Well, you can do lots of combinations, I'm sure. And I just wanted to quickly introduce you so the rest of the audience knows. So Anne Moskaliuk is the one you've been hearing all the filling information from. So she's been deeply involved in the Ukrainian community in Toronto since her arrival from Saskatchewan in 1945. She was involved with SVI's Odessa Pavilion during the caravan years, Ukrainian Women's Association of Canada, Trezub, and then UWAC, Knyahenya Olha branch at St Vladimir Cathedral, as well as a working member of the Ukrainian Canadian Women's Council. She continues to prepare delicious food for St Vladimir Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral in Toronto and her family in Canada and the US. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Darcia later. So that's all for us now. So back to you guys there in the kitchen.
Yeah, and she's also 95 years old and has more energy than all of us, which is, which is an inspiration in itself. So it's always, she never stops moving. So that's the key to keep going, is you got to keep moving. So I think we have a couple more minutes where if your dough just got mixed, I would let it sit for at least another 5. What we can start doing is Baba's going to show you how she rolls it out. I don't even bother with this because I don't have the patience, but we start off by putting some flour on the table, covering your hand in flour. Again, you're gonna use quite a bit of flour for this process, and you'll see the dough change a little bit as we move forward. So we'll start going on this, and then as your dough rests, again, you're gonna give it that 5 minutes, or even if you start a little early, the next time you work with the dough, it'll be ready to go. But you want to just take off about just a little bit smaller than about a tennis ball's worth of dough. And then you're going to start rolling it out. So Baba just goes to town.
Here, can you put that rolling pin over there?
And then the trick here, while Baba rolls it out, is you're going to see there's more than 1 spoon in there. You got to get as many people as you can at this point to help you out, because if you do it by yourself, it goes a lot slower. With a lot of people, it goes a lot quicker. And you always have someone to come over and help. I remember the first couple of years I started to do this on my own, and I would call Baba and ask her about a couple things in the Varennyky recipe. And then about 15 minutes later, she would be at our back door kitchen coming in ready to go, even though I didn't want her to come help because I wanted to do it. It's always better when you have someone else helping.
Do you have water?
Yeah. So Mama, so you can see before I'm even done, they're already starting. So there's just a little thing of water here. So as you work with the dough, there might be a little flour left on them. And that's fine. Just have a little cup of water, and if you need to get your fingers in there and just put it on the inside of the dough, it'll help it stick. So you don't need any egg. And then you have one person rolling ideally, and then someone else stuffing. So you have a bit of a conveyor belt happening. If you're on your own, it's okay. Cassie, who doesn't like to be on camera, when she helps me out, she usually takes a nap for 90% of it. And by the time I'm done my last Varennyky, she's helping me. So
that's the best way of making Varennyky.
Yeah, so
good girl.
I'm always doing it on my own for the most part too. And the best part is you can freeze them. So we just have a tray with parchment paper. The way we normally do it is just lay out a couple kitchen towels and leave them on there. You don't want them to touch together because then they're going to stick. So
Just a quick question from the audience. They just want to see the filling and the rolling being done. So can we just move the camera slightly?
Yeah. So
Perfect.
So you want about about half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of filling. I like to make big varenyky, so I use about a tablespoon. And then maybe I'll pinch one in front of the camera because I'm picky about how I pinch them. When you do it, you stick it in the center. I do a little trick. So you start off with the filling right in the middle. I like to use my finger and just flip it upside down and wrap it over so I get a little bit of a half moon like that. It's almost if you've ever watched sushi being made, kind of like you're about to make sushi. I don't know why you'd be watching sushi being made, but people like sushi. So it looks like a little half moon. And then I come in and I just slightly stretch the dough and gently press it together. So I like to take my time with this part. This part can be very therapeutic. This can be the part where people don't like to do it. So you can see it's not actually sealed, but I'm getting a nice shape. I then like to flatten and shape the varenyky. And then I'll slowly start to work my way back and forth. And it'll start to stick more and more. If the dough is sticking to your fingers and not sticking to itself, you can just cover your fingers in a little flour. Eventually, the dough will start to stick to itself. And then I like to just use my this part of my finger here. It's my index. Is that an index finger? My index finger and my thumb. So I'm covering my index on the bottom, and I'm just pinching as I go along like that, rotating the varenyky, and then I flip it and seal it like that. And then you should have a nice little half moon like that.
Sorry, we're just comparing on different.
These are different styles. Whose is this?
That's mine.
That's Mama's. Oh,
I
dropped hers.
I like Vargati.
That's Vargati. I don't know what that means, but it's limpy. Lippy. And that's Cassie's?
That's like
So
my
that's
father.
so that's like our late Udon style. That's Cassie's. So that's my wife. So she's adopted the Udon style of doing it. So you can, when we pull out the machine, the pasta machine, I'm going to show you a different method of doing this. You can use, they have it's like a machine, right? Where what's that little plastic press, and you can just do them quicker, and then you get those little ridges.
Oh yeah, I have them somewhere.
Varenyky is the first thing I ever made. So I've been cooking for as long as I can remember, and this is my earliest memory of cooking. So I'm very picky about my varenyky, and it needs to have a perfectly sealed edge without any ridges. So that's where mine come in. But again, I'm just picky that way. So
a couple questions here for you, Mykola, if you don't mind. So can you freeze the dough? I believe you already spoke about that. Yeah. So yes, that's a yes on that. And then do you freeze it raw? Do you freeze the varenyky raw, or you boil them first?
You can do both. I like freezing the dough and the varenyky raw because then you can cook it. And so traditionally when you have fresh dough, I like to just boil that and eat it as is with a little brown butter or burnt butter and caramelized onions. If you freeze them cooked or you've cooked them ahead of time, that's where I like to fry the dough. So I have a preference. I like to really have the dough fresh. I don't like to fry it and you get the real flavors coming out. But if it's sat a little bit, it does change the texture a little bit. And then that's where I like to fry it, and you get a fried varenyky.
I gotta tell you, this dough is sealing itself. It's fantastic.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good dough. So
It's
Baba,
lovely.
I'm gonna give you a break. We're gonna pull out the KitchenAid.
All right.
So for those of you that don't like the part about rolling it out, this is going to be wonderful. So once you cut those out, Baba,
Yes.
I'll give you a break.
All right.
And then we'll show you, Mama called me this morning to tell me there is a brand new method out there of making varenyky. It's actually a method used for raviolis.
Oh,
So I didn't tell you that earlier. It's how you make ravioli. Or in restaurants I've worked at, this is how we do it. Just make the process go by a little quicker. So once Baba's done cutting these Varennyky out, and you can see, so we're going pretty quick here. We already have about 1 dozen done. And it's quite early, I believe. It's only 4:25. So yeah, the power of numbers. The more people, if people in the household are eating them, they have to come help pinch them and shape them. It's the rule, even if it's just one. So before I go, I just want to come back to the dough we mixed together. So you can see it's already getting stretchy and absorbed all the liquid. So if you haven't started to roll it out, you can now. If you've already started, that's fine. The more you work with the dough, the more the gluten is going to develop, and easier it's going to be. So
okay, Papa.
we're going to come in here. I'm going to
Ooh,
throw them around.
I'm throwing dough around.
Baba, you out of breath?
No, I'm
No?
okay. No.
Okay, you sit here, I'm gonna get this wrap.
So I'm going to make a little noise. So I'm going to do all the talking, and then once I get rolling, this machine's going to get loud. But I like to really cover the dough in flour. So don't be shy. Even if you want, you can dip it right in the flour lightly and then kind of stretch it out. So this is a pasta attachment for a KitchenAid. You can get handheld ones as well that are much cheaper if you have a KitchenAid. I highly suggest this. And then this, Baba won't want to hear this, but if you want to use this dough, you can actually use this for udon noodles too, if you like udon noodles, if you have a lot of extra dough. So that's something we used to do in the restaurant for staff meals. We just use the extra and make udon noodles for staff meal.
It's a big.
So starting from the largest setting, you pass it through and you work your way down. And as the flour comes off, you add more. And that's why we're using such a light dough, because there's a lot of flour involved. So this is going to make a little bit of noise. I'll be quick though. You'll see how fast this goes. Okay, so done. And I just go to the number 4 setting. And then from here, Bob, I'm going to show them one other method.
Do you,
A couple questions. How thick did you roll out the dough and how much did you use when you broke it off? So
You can,
Oh, it's quite thin. It's about, what, 1/8?
no, it's number 4 on there.
Yeah.
So you started at 2 and then you kept.
yeah, you start at 1. So on a pasta machine, you go to about the number 4 setting. For thickness, I would be at the average thickness of a layer of an onion. That's how thick I would roll the dough out to. I don't know if that works. So Bob, I'm going to show them how to do this this method. Maybe
okay.
do you want to bring the computer over so they can see it?
Okay, cameraman.
yes, so anyone who keeps asking in the chat. So if you don't have that same KitchenAid, that's okay. Like Mykola or like Pani Muskaluk said, it's either 1/8 of an inch or the thickness of an onion. So
Yeah, and thicker is better because you're gonna stretch it. So this method, it wastes a lot more dough, and I'm just doing it quickly. I'm not really taking my time, but you essentially come in and you fold over the dough like that. You come by with your glass, and you just cut them like that. So if you're in a hurry.
Oh my God, look at that.
So I just taught Baba something new, 95 years old, and she's learning how to make Varennyky.
That's
There you
from
go.
Facebook. I saw that.
That's Facebook.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you,
So-
it's okay, but I
Okay,
prefer
yeah,
our
we're good.
method.
So this is, you're not going to get as nice of a shape.
No,
You get a little bit of air in it. It does take, but if you're in a hurry and you want to do a lot, and then you get some waste.
Yeah.
Save this. We didn't talk about it. I
Oh, there
know.
it is.
You want to just crump this up. There's the rest of it, and you just shape it. You can use this again.
And
So-
again,
Yeah, and again, so you can use it about 3 times. So don't throw out the excess. You save that. Ideally, cover it up. So that's yeah, so that's that method. You can see how quick that went. I could have gotten more out of it. I just did it in a rush. But there's that method as well. Now I like to use the pasta machine. You saw how quick that was. So we're gonna roll through a couple batches of dough.
As you're rolling it through, can you just show us the size of the size
Yeah.
that you put in? And then someone asked if we can get a close up of the dough going through the machine. So not
Okay.
sure if that's possible with the setup.
Yeah,
Here we go. We're gonna get it.
okay. So
So,
I
yeah.
can't see what. All right,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so I'm just gonna show you. So lots of flour. You can come in close, Mama. Why don't you come on this side? It'll be easier for you to hold it.
Okay. I'm not experienced in this cameraman stuff.
Do you want to turn the pot on high? Okay,
Okay.
so lots of flour on the table. You can see I like to roll it out. You know, kind of really pretty thin by hand, just so it goes through properly. You want to put it up here, Mama? Okay, and then I'm gonna start on number 1 and go down, and then I'll show you the thickness.
That's what number?
3.
3. And that's 4?
Yeah.
Papa's got a gauge, he can tell you exactly.
So you're looking at like that. I don't think the gauge is
Just roughly. It's about 2 millimeters.
2 millimeters. So um,
That's the right.
can you come closer, Mama? Yeah, so you can see it's not you don't want it to be paper thin. If it goes too thin, like I said, go thicker. If you think it's too thin, go thicker. The problem with it going too thin, you can start cutting them, Baba, is that it's gonna break when it's boiling. And then you'll get potato water, which is, it's not the end of the world. I like those. But the other trick to the filling is you want it to be drier. So as soon as you start getting water in the filling, it stays wet. Those potatoes, the cheese and the potatoes, they stay very hot. And then when you eat it, if you're like me and have no patience and you pop them in your mouth right away, you burn your mouth every single time. So a drier stuffing, the better. And then don't be afraid to go thicker. Mama and Baba are perfectionists and they always go as thin as they possibly can and it never breaks. I'm okay with a thicker dough. I always called me a dough boy when I was younger. So I'm okay with a thicker dough. And then, yeah, and if you have a bunch of people, you don't have to do much. So
Nicole, can you use the reused?
yeah, I said that.
No, but can you show how it comes out?
Comes out the same way.
This dough is so soft.
Yeah.
I think it's the flour.
So as you're forming the dough together, I know I've only introduced 2 people in that room, and I'll introduce now Darcia Mykola Rutkay. So if some of you don't know her, I'm sure a lot of you do. She is currently the national president of Ukrainian Women's Association of Canada, a former board member of SVI, and past president of the Ukrainian Canadian Women's Council Toronto branch, and first vice president of Parish Council of St Demetrius Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral, Etobicoke. She and her husband Robert met at SVI 38 years ago. Following in her mother's footsteps, she continues to be a dynamic contributor to the Ukrainian Canadian community. So as you can see, the family is working away, making those Varennyky. So we'll throw it back to you guys and see what you're doing.
So are you ready to cook?
Yeah, I think if you don't have your pot boiling yet, you can get your pot boiling. We have one going. We'll show you what it looks like. I'm sure a lot of you are gonna, if you're going to be efficient, you're gonna want to get your Varennyky all done first. And then you have me and the family who cooks a couple off in the middle of it just to eat them and try a dozen of them before
Just
dinner.
to make sure it's salted enough. Oh, do you salt your water?
Yeah, I salt my water quite a bit. Every time I do it, when I lived at home or Cassie, they always say it's way too much salt. You don't eat all that salt. So you want your water to taste like seawater. If you haven't been to the ocean, go take a vacation when you can. but it should taste like the sea.
Yeah,
That's gonna add the flavor into the dough along with the salt in it already. If you don't season it enough, it's not really doing much. It does boil at a lower temperature or at a higher temperature as you add salt to it. Well, that's TV magic. As you can see, as I'm talking about it, our pot's coming to a boil right as we're talking about it.
oh,
So yeah, from there, I wanted to talk about flour a little bit. I'm sure a lot of you are still making some right now. So thanks, Mama. I'm talking about
Yeah, yeah, there was a couple questions about the brand of flour. So do you have a preference? What's the best one?
Yeah. So I've been big into making bread over the last 3 or 4 years, and I've been really picky about my flours. So Baba's been making this with any all-purpose flour. Usually she buys 5 bags when it goes on sale. But I always like using a better brand. So what I found works the best, and I only use in my home now is unbleached all-purpose flour. Costco carries a really great unbleached flour. It's an organic unbleached flour. I think it's about $17 for 11 kilograms. So the price is right, and I use it for everything. When I'm making pizza, I use it over 00 flour if anyone's into pizza making. I use it for just about anything. So an unbleached all-purpose, it's called Boreal. And you can get it at Costco. Even during the pandemic, when all the flour was sold out, we were able to go to Costco and pick it up. It's always in stock. And then you have a ton of it and you never have to worry about running out of flour. So that's my favorite one. And then the unbleached, so a bleached flour essentially is just for aesthetic purposes. A lot of, cooking, cupcakes or things like that. It just takes the color right out and there isn't a ton of color, and you're actually, any nutrients that might be left in it is completely gone. So a bleached flour is just, I wouldn't buy. The unbleached, even though it is a white flour, it still provides some kind of nutrients. Don't get me wrong, this is not something you're going to eat because it's good for you. This is good for the soul food. It's not good for you, but an unbleached all-purpose flour is the best, I think. Yeah, I think that's it for flour. I think we wrote it in the recipe for potatoes. Baba likes to use a russet potato. I use Yukon Golds.
Yukon Gold.
I use Yukon Golds.
oh, Baba's Yukon Gold. I'm the
Oh,
russet.
Mama's russet. Me and Baba are Yukon Gold.
So is the Varennyky ready to be boiled?
Oh,
I left that for you.
okay. So yeah, while they're pinched more, I'm going to show you how
Pinch
to.
more.
It's very simple. You have a pot of boiling water. I'm going to show you how much salt I add. Everyone's going to cringe.
He adds a lot. He's the
I
salt.
don't.
So
Wow.
Yeah, he uses a lot.
So keep in mind, you don't eat the whole pot of water. It's only what's boiling in it. So a lot of that salt doesn't make it in. And again, you're already eating white flour, cheese, and potatoes. The least of your concerns is the salt. So unless you have high blood pressure, salt your water really well. It should taste like the sea.
And sorry, Mykola, you salted after it was already boiling, correct?
Yeah, so it's debatable. I've worked with some pretty crazy chefs that say, Italian chefs specifically, in terms of they're known as telling them about pasta water. It changes the taste of the water and becomes more metallic if you season it before it comes to a boil. So if you want to be very authentic and you're true to the flavor, you season your water after it comes to a boil. I can't tell the difference, but it's just one of those things you do because you're told it's better. So if you can tell the difference, good on you. So I'm gonna go over to the pot. I think you can all still hear me.
I was just gonna say, I found a recipe for Italian Varennyky, and they use potato with cheese, and then they top it with pizza sauce. It's from Sardinia. It's the only place in Italy that they make them. But I was really pleased to find that they use our recipe.
And then you don't want to put the Varennyky on a plate like that because it gets sticky.
Oh,
So maybe don't do that.
okay. I won't do
So
it.
you might get a couple that break. So you can see you're putting them in one at a time. And then you want to gently stir it, just to make sure they don't stick. You'll notice a couple of them are starting to float. Those are the ones we made quickly with that ravioli method. There's just air pockets. But what you're looking for is you want to turn the pot down so you can see it boiling.
Does he want more?
You just want it to gently simmer. If you do it as a gentle simmer, you're not going to have the stuffing pull out. And then the idea is once they come up to a boil and they're all floating, you put on a 2-minute timer that the Varennyky are done. If you cook them from frozen, you bring them up to a boil. I let them float until they're all floating again. It just takes longer for that to happen. And then generally 2 minutes is enough time. 3 minutes if you want to be safe from frozen, but that's after they're all boiling. So some of you may still be shaping them. If you have a lot of people, this is where you work as a team and you get a couple people boiling them, a couple people shaping.
Teaching them.
I was going to show real quick. I think I know a lot of you probably have onions, so I wanted to quickly demo an onion cutting technique because this is the worst part about Varennyky. Mama, do you want to maybe time them?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is my least favorite part. I usually start tearing up. I'll actually open the door behind here so I don't. You can come in and you want to cut the onion in half and you want to leave a little bit of that root on there to hold the onion together. Now, generally what you would do is you'd go cut down in this way a couple times. If you want to be perfect, that's fine. I'm lazy. I never do that. I just come in this way and I cut the onion in sections, but I'm leaving it attached at the back. And that root end is going to hold it all. Okay, and then so I have this little fan like that. You're going to come in this way and just chop them off like that. And then you have perfectly diced onions and you just go all the way down the onion. So if you have any extra hands in the house right now and you don't have onions going, you can get these on and start caramelizing them. But they fall apart and you wind up with little onion dices like that. So you can actually do it quite quickly. And then all of a sudden, once you practice that, because it's not going to be easy at first, it's, I'll show you up close what it looks like. It just makes it go by way quicker. And then cutting onions isn't as much of a task. And now Mama has some pre-cut onions.
I want to show you, this is the ravioli style. Look at the air. I don't know if you can see it on.
Yeah. Julia, maybe if you can pin the pot.
Yeah, of course. That's what we were just about to do. And then I know there's a couple questions about filling in the chat, but we'll get to those. I'm not ignoring them for sure. So we'll get to them after the boiling.
So you can see that air bubble. That's just because we rushed it. Yeah, as they come up, but that's what they'll look like. We can probably pull them out soon. You can see, you can boil a little bit more than that, but that's fine. It's just a gentle simmer. You don't need too much agitation. If it's not boiling, it's not cooking. So you do want some bubbles. What were the questions?
So the couple questions about filling, have any of you ever done Varennyky with poppy seeds? So someone said during St Vladimir they've done poppy seed Varennyky. Is that something you've done?
Cookies with,
No, just cookies.
you know, yeah.
I'm just strictly cheese, potato, and onion. I'm becoming slightly more open to other fillings, but that's my bread and butter.
I have never heard of with you'd have to use cottage cheese with the poppy seed because
or potatoes, just
Yeah,
or
so
potatoes, something that would
yeah, so if you use the poppy seed, you'd have to mix it with potatoes or cottage cheese.
Makes sense. Another question. So if I'm making sweet fillings such as fruit, would we not salt the water at all? Or would you still salt it? And any changes to the dough?
I'm not a sweets person. But if I were doing it, you could add some sugar to the dough. You'd still salt the water, maybe not as much, but a little salty and sweet's actually really good. It goes a long way. So you shouldn't be afraid to add salt to sweets. I would still salt it, just not as heavily, just slightly. And then if you wanted, you could add sugar to the dough. But it would be really nice if it's not my thing, but if you had a nice sweet filling and then a saltier dough, it would go really well. It really complements itself. Salt goes a long way with everything.
Makes sense. And one more question about filling. So we like to use sour cherry during St Vladimir, but we struggle with the juice, which opens up the dough. Any suggestions?
So a little bit of flour.
Or breadcrumbs.
Or breadcrumbs. It'll help absorb it. I'm trying to think. You could potentially even use, just like you would for stuffing, just some day-old bread, just to help absorb it. It'll be like a bread pudding a little bit inside. It's a little bit more wasteful, but if you squeeze out a lot of the juice in some cheesecloth, you could, if you wanted just a pure cherry filling.
Well, you're talking about fresh cherries, right? Not canned cherries.
I'm not sure. That's all they said. So maybe if you want to clarify, whoever did ask that questions. Oh,
Right.
someone said frozen sour cherries.
Just
Frozen, yeah.
Oh,
So frozen, you can, all of the above, because that juice is very flavorful. So either flour, breadcrumbs, but the day-old bread just torn up very small. It would help absorb it. Like a sweeter bread, like a kolache or or a babka even would go well. But then you can always squeeze it out. You don't get a lot out of it. So you could try different things. And the greatest part is with this amount of dough, next time you do it, play around with a couple different options, make a small amount, and then boil a couple and see what works best.
Well, we have a lot of experimenting to do for sure. So I see, I think Darcy, you're tossing with something. Is that with butter or what are you tossing with?
Yeah, so Mama, you want to hold the bowl up to the camera?
Oh, really?
So we prepared a little bit of brown butter. So Mama's So there's a little brown butter and caramelized onions. You can just use melted butter, it's perfectly fine.
Let me show you the brown butter.
Yeah, so the brown butter, you put on about medium heat and you got to watch it. And the milk fats, I don't like to stir it. Baba stir it a little higher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Baba does it on a higher temperature. And if you sit there and watch it, you stir it, and then the milk solids, and I think it's the fats in there, the proteins that start to brown. They add a lot of nutty flavor to it. So that is my favorite way of eating them, is with the brown butter and then caramelized onions. I know.
I showed.
Yeah, so that's what you saw. Bacon's very popular, chives, green onions. And then obviously serve it with some sour cream. Again, when they're fresh like this, I like to eat them without sour cream. And then when they're fried, I eat them with sour cream. But I'm
Try
also
not to stir it with a spoon once they come out of the water. That's why I'm flipping it in the bowl.
Yeah, so what Mama was saying, I don't know if you could hear, but you not to stir it with a spoon. A spoon, they're very delicate. So in the pot, obviously it's fine, they're floating, but once they come out, you want to toss it in the oil or the butter, whatever you're using. If you want to use oil, caramelized onions go a long way to flavor oil, and then you can use that.
Oh, give me some more.
I don't know if there's any more questions.
Oh, yes, just one more. So do you rinse Varennyky after boiling?
No.
We don't, but I used to do that at the church because we cooked so many.
At once.
So we have to rinse them.
Yeah, and that what it does when you rinse, so you're gonna cool them down. It'll help prevent them from sticking if you're making a lot. I wouldn't put too much water in there because again, there's a lot of flavor in that dough, and you rinse it, it'll get rid of some of that. But if you're cooking them to cool them down and store them that way, you can rinse them and cover them in a little bit of oil. That'll help. If you're not going to eat them right away, I suggest oil over butter, because as butter cools and goes in the fridge, it'll solidify and you'll get all your Varenyky sticking together. Oil will not do that, so it'll help you keep them separate. And rinsing will help with that as well. but they usually don't last that long for us. So
Well, yeah, there's a few comments saying that they're coming over to eat your Varenyky. So I think you might have some guests. And a quick question, have you ever used spelt flour to make your dough?
no, I haven't. It is something I'm actually not eating white flour right now over the next month and a bit. So I don't even get to eat these, but it's something I'm going to start experimenting with. I didn't want to start with that, but even a whole wheat durum wheat would work well. Durum wheat is used in pasta and generally what like a semolina flour is made from. So it's got a very high gluten content. It doesn't have a good structure to it, so it's not great for bread. But durum wheat, spelt flour would be really good because they got higher gluten contents to them.
And think of what our Fredke had, you
But-
know.
and Mama, yeah, if you want me to say it?
Yeah.
And here, so Mama likes to say that we never had white flour in the old country back when our Varennyky is what you called it?
Fredke.
Varennyky had before us. So, you know, it was likely used. But, you know, whole wheat flour is something interesting to try. This is, again, I'm a very traditional person when it comes to Varennyky, and I don't like to have any variations. But it is something worth trying, and then you can actually turn this into somewhat of a healthier side as long as you're not eating 24 of them in one sitting. It can be okay.
Sounds delicious. And then quick question, Sarah is interested in how you make udon noodles from the leftover dough. So if it's a quick process, maybe you can tell us.
Yeah, so you do the same thing that you did with the pasta roller. If you don't have a pasta roller, you roll it out the same way, and then you just put it through the fettuccine setting in your pasta roller. Or if you're making it from scratch, I'll roll it out very quickly. I won't do it perfectly just to show you here, but you would take it, roll it out, and then this is a very small amount. I'll try to do it closer to the camera. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. And then you would kind of fold it over like this, gently, like a crepe, and then cut it with a knife. And then unroll it. Lots of flour so it doesn't stick. I'll show you actually. I might be able to do it right here. I'll do it off camera. Oh, there we go. So again, this is, you know, go a little thinner. You'd roll it, fold it over gently, not even a roll. And then just cut through. And then again, a little bit more flour. You can see it's starting to stick together. But you'd come up with like a loose udon noodle. The pasta maker makes it a little nicer. But you have a little noodle, and then you can get a little Asian influence. A lot of my training was with a lot of Asian flavors, so I actually really enjoy that. I don't ever do this. They always wind up in Varennyky, but you get little udon noodles like that. And these are really good too, if that's what you want to do.
We'll have to try it out. And then a question on best way to caramelize the onions. So I'm not sure if there was anything else you wanted to cover, but that's another question that came in.
So yeah, how to caramelize them is you can use oil, butter, or a combination of the two. I like to start it off on a higher heat just to get it going, just when you start to have it start to stick to the bottom a little bit without the color showing up, and then you turn it right down. And you know, for I'd say about 2 minutes on that high, and then start turning it down to about medium. You'll see it kind of slow down a little bit, and you keep stirring, and then you turn it right down to, you know, next to the lowest setting on your stovetop, and just let it go. And then you want it to get very deep. Why are you laughing at me?
No, tiny.
Oh,
Making tiny ones.
just so tiny. So yeah, you would just go, and then you can take it down so it's very deep and amber in color. I like it. I know it's St. Demetrius on Lakeshore. They like a very deeply caramelized onion, which I love. If you do it low enough, it'll actually break down quite a bit. And all you're doing when you're caramelizing is you're releasing the natural sugars in the onion. So yeah, it just low and slow if you want to be safe with it. I have no patience, so I started off higher, but if you put it on low with a good amount of fat, a little bit of salt, you just let it go. And that when you're doing the onions for the filling, do enough for the varenyky for after you cook them.
Yeah,
So you do it all at once, and the more onions you're working with, the easier it is to do without burning. So if you're doing a small amount, it'll burn easier.
the ones in the photograph, when I was doing it, I got a phone call and they were on the medium setting and they browned beautifully. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted caramelized.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then and if it ever gets if it's starting to get too dark, you can always hit it with a splash of water and deglaze the onions a little bit. And it'll keep going. That water will evaporate and they'll keep caramelizing. So water is actually a really good thing to have on hand.
Slow and steady wins the race, water and salt. Guess those are our friends too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was any other steps you wanted to cover. We do have a couple fun facts if anyone is interested. I can share those. All right. So go ahead, Mykola, sorry.
No, I had nothing. I was going to say we don't have anything else. You're good.
Perfect. Well, then I'll share this fun fact as everyone is cooking away or making their varenyky. So I know in the chat there were some questions about varenyky versus perogi. So according to the cookbook by author Stavella Stachician, the difference between varenyky and perogi is the way they're cooked. So varenyky comes from the word varenya, to boil, whereas perogi are first boiled and then pan fried or baked. So that's a perig. And so it comes from that word. So little different words in that vocabulary. In the town of Glendon, Alberta, you'll see this photo put up that they actually boast the largest statue of Varennyky in the world. So if you want to see a huge Varennyky, head to Alberta, of course, when it is safe. They have a few big statues over there. And then finally, so Varennyky actually, they symbolize fertility and procreation. So they were served to the bride-to-be on this, or on the second day of wedding celebrations and to expectant mothers. So just a couple fun facts on that front there.
You know, the halachane, St Vladimir, or the perogi, бо то була Польща, і вони perogies. То вони з perogies зробили perogi.
Makes sense.
А з східної України там більше вареники, там варили. And that's how we interpreted that. Well, but both.
No, that makes sense. Every region takes names from different parts and
Yeah,
just depends where you grew up.
that's right.
So we do see some of the varenyky still boiling. Looks like you have a lot more to boil still.
Yeah, I mean, Jen, I don't know why we're cooking it. We can stop cooking them now. You could freeze some.
So that'll be for.
Yeah, see, yeah, we just go into autopilot. We're not used to not cooking them all, so that Mama's cooking them all as if I'm going to eat 3 dozen here. And if you're a true Ukrainian, you're going to make 120 of these and eat half of them the day you make them. So.
No, you don't.
No. Says the one
I
who
make
makes too
them
much.
and I have about 3-4 dozen in the fridge and I look at them.
Freezer.
It's in the fridge, the freezer, not the fridge, yeah. I hope
So we've got 4 dozen cooked. I don't think we've ever made varenyky this.
Yeah, so if anybody wants some more varenyky, we
Come
have
on
them
over.
all. We can already made too
Just come
many.
to Darcy's place, she's got all of them all.
And maybe the filling, just to note, we didn't put black pepper in the filling because
Yes, we
Tato,
did.
you did?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, not enough then. We normally, like, I like a heavy on the black pepper.
Yes,
So if anybody's making the filling, and Tato gets a little sensitive to black pepper, so we kept a little bit out for him, but then apparently still put it in, so he can't have any. Can you have a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can have a little bit. I like it very heavy. You know, it's almost like a black pepper filling.
no, you shouldn't do that
Well, I
much.
like that.
Yeah, but that's your taste,
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
You've eaten it before with heavy pepper.
Well, hang on. You want to show them about a shock?
Yeah.
How would you say it?
Varenyky.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you what we do with the leftover dough. I'll bring it over. Oh, yeah, Cassie can bring it over.
Oh,
Okay, so you just cut off the excess ends. It doesn't have to be pretty,
this is it, yeah.
and that's it. And then you just boil that. I'll go over and put one in so you can see what it looks like. And then if you're done your filling,
Take both of them.
oh yeah, we take both of them. If you're done your filling, you can roll out the rest of the dough and just cut it all and then you get a bunch of those. These freeze very well. And again, they're little treats you have. I like to just eat all of these before the varenyky even make it on the plate.
Oh my God, they're delicious.
Well, I'm pulling these out. But you can also do lazy varenyky where you put the
Oh my
cheese
God, yeah.
on cheese.
I used to
Flour.
use these varenyky, leftover dough. And we used to eat it with cherries, like preserved cherries, and it was really good.
That sounds delicious too, with some cherries and fruit.
Yeah,
So I know we are coming to the end. It is 5 o'clock, so we are finishing up, and I know some of you are still cooking in your houses, and that's okay too. Mykola, if there was anything else you wanted to share, please do, and if not, we will wrap off today's session.
Yeah, I think that's it. I know that was pretty, I didn't think we'd get through it in an hour. I think it's, again, it's a very forgiving recipe. You can play around with it. That is our, Baba used to change it up on me every time, so that's something to remember. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you follow this recipe well, and you heard every time Mama uses it, she goes, "Oh, this dough is really good."
and there was a lady that came from Lviv a couple of years ago, and she just used flour, salt, and water. And everybody said, "Oh, they're good." But to me, it was like shoe leather.
Yeah. So if it's, you don't use the fat in the potato. Actually, I don't know if I talked about this, but the reason you use potato water is it releases starch into the dough. And that's what makes it a very soft, like pillowy type dough, and it still has some bite. So the fat and the potato water do that. So that's, all we have. And I hope everyone enjoys it. And
would you believe we did 4 cups of flour dough already?
yeah, it's all done.
And all those potatoes are almost gone.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I see your varenyczki are cooking in the water. They're boiling. Sorry. Looks like you'll have a little snack to eat.
Yeah.
Well, as we end off, thank you so much for everyone for cooking in your homes and asking such great questions. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure you all have as well. Thank you, of course, Mykola, for leading us through making the varenyky, along with Pani Darcia, and Pani Moskaliuk. And thank you, Casey and Bob, for your assistance. I know it was a whole family affair for sure. Of course, we do want to thank the Seuss Foundation of Canada for making these events possible. So these events are free of charge, and if you have enjoyed it, feel free to make a donation to St Vladimir Institute. Thank you, of course, Oksana Havrelyak for the beautiful web design, and to the SVI librarian, Halina Ostapchuk. So if you have any other questions on cooking or want to rent out a book, you can feel free to do so from the SVI library. So with that being said, make sure to post your varenyky on Facebook or Instagram before you eat them with hashtag SVI Varenyky. And we do have one more event. So coming up on June 6th, before we take a short summer break. So on June 6th, feel free to join us and meet the award-winning author, Diana Stephen. So we hope to stay in touch with all of you. And as you can see, Nick is showing us his beautiful bowl of varenyky. So hopefully yours are looking like that as well. Oh, I see some. So maybe we'll take a quick screenshot as we finish up. So if you have your varenyky, show them up to the camera, and I'll take a quick photo if you like. If you don't want to, that's okay as well. But you can show us your varenyky.
Note, I didn't actually make it.
Well, they look delicious, and I hope everyone has a great evening and enjoys their dinners if you're eating them.
It's the Varenyk monster.
Oh, and someone asked about the recording. Yes, this event will be recorded and up on our YouTube page today or tomorrow. So yeah.
Hey, that's good. Your sister wants.
Perfect. All right. Well, hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you so much. The Moskaliuk and the Rutkay family. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.